first off, I'm really nervous because it was just not a good time for me. And second off, it's going to be a bit choppy at parts because this is literally my first speech about this, so just bear with me. And at the end, if you have any questions, I'll answer anything. Okay, so my mother had paranoid schizophrenia, and I know when you hear about it in class, it doesn't sound like a big thing, like, oh, it's a mental disorder, what's so bad about that? But it really does ruin relationships around you. And my mother, by the end of this entire ordeal, she did not have a single person that loved her, a single person that liked her presence, not even me, not my little brother who's 6 years old, not my father. We all wanted her gone. And that is what paranoid schizophrenia does to you. It makes you a monster to everyone you know, makes you an alien who they just want you to die, almost. That's what I wanted my mother to do. I just wanted her to die. There was nothing more than that, nothing less than that. Anyway, it started when I was around, I don't know, 5 years old. She would have these delusions, and hers was very specific. It was about hackers hacking into our computer and just going into our webcams and just spying on us. It was as simple as that. And even if you go into my house today, you'll see all the webcams in my house, like on iPads, computers, they all have Band-Aids over them because she's just paranoid about someone just spying on us. And I just started like that. It didn't start off as a big thing, just her talking about it every now and then. And, you know, my dad and her would have arguments when I was little. I don't remember too much about that. But last year, it got escalated to a really large point. That was when she stopped taking her medicine, and it was about 3 months after that. She started talking about these hackers. Then she started just yelling at my dad that he wasn't doing anything about it. And it didn't seem like a big thing at the time, you know, just, you know, she's a bit crazy, and she was just yelling at my dad for no reason. But it evolved to the point where she would just never stop yelling. And it got to the point where she would just scream at my dad, me, my brother, anyone she saw, because she was crazy at that point. And it was especially bad for my dad because he used to work in Chicago, and he left Sunday night, came back Thursday night, so he was gone 4 out of 7 nights. And 3 nights he was back, he would get nothing except yelled at just by my mother, and it was nonstop. Because of her schizophrenia, she needed literally 4 hours of sleep a day. She went to sleep at 10, woke up at 2, maybe 1 sometimes, and she was just started screaming the entire night. You can ask people that knew me then. I was always exhausted because I got maybe 3 hours of sleep a night if I was lucky, because she just wouldn't stop screaming. I could not get to sleep. And the sad thing was that was almost the good part compared to everything else that happened. I remember once my brother was using his iPad, and he was using it for like, I don't know, like 30 minutes more than he was supposed to. She just grabbed it out of his hands and just bent him over and just beat him with it, with an iPad with a case on. And I'll just never forget how hard he cried because his mother was beating him with an iPad for little to no reason at all. You know, that was one of the worst things that happened in my house at the time. She would constantly, and when I say this, it's going to sound like I'm exaggerating, but anything I say in the speech, I'm not going to be exaggerating. I want you to take it at face value. She picked up a 20-pound bowl and tried to actually just beat me with it, which would have probably killed me or put me in the hospital. It was good that I was actually stronger than her at the time, so I was able to force her to put it down. But she would just do that. I remember one time my dad was sleeping and she just poured hot water on him. Like he was in the middle of his sleep and she just poured it on him. And, you know, he couldn't do anything at the time because American domestic abuse laws, they're very biased towards women, no matter what you think. And he would just, he would go to jail if he did anything. And so he had to control his anger. And this was, again, especially bad because he was only home. He was only with his family 3 out of 7 nights. And this was what my mother was doing to him when he was home. The cops were called at least 3 times, maybe 4, and the first 3 times nothing happened. They just told us good luck because, again, the domestic abuse laws, no matter what my mother did to my father or me, it didn't matter. It was only what we did to her. And so we didn't do anything to her, so they would just show up with a warning and leave. The last time, she actually, there was so much evidence against her. My dad had scratches on his neck. I had scratches on my neck. And they put her in handcuffs to take her to a mental institution. And this is probably the most twisted part of the story. She started sobbing And I have never seen a human being cry like this before. It was absolutely just she was sobbing, and it was the lowest you'll ever see a human being, and I was happy. Like, I was in the back. My dad was sad. I was just smiling because she deserved it. At that point, she deserved to be miserable. She deserved nothing less than to be miserable because of what she put my family through. She deserved that. And, you know, now when I look back at that, I would never do that to her now. I love her as a mother now because she's gotten better. But at the time, it was just, I was happy she was miserable. And she, you know, got handcuffed, got taken to a mental institution. And here's where the schizophrenia part gets in. The thing about paranoid schizophrenia is you're never wrong. It's everyone else around you that criticizes you that's wrong. That's what causes you to act out to be crazy. And when she was taken to the mental institution, you know, the doctors there, they were telling her, you're paranoid schizophrenic, you have to take these meds. And she just wouldn't do it because apparently the doctors were all scheming against her to get her to, you know, just take her meds and be normal, I guess. And, you know, it just happened like that. Finally, we just sent her to India because we couldn't deal with her anymore here. And we thought, you know, sending her to India would solve the problem, but it actually escalated things from there. She actually got kicked out of her own house by her own family because she called her father names that I probably can't say here. And same with the rest of her family, but her father was like the head of, you know, her side of the family in India. She just kicked her out of his house. And so directly from there, she went to my dad's aunt's house, and you know, my dad told my aunt to his aunt to just close the door and don't let her in. And when she didn't let her in, she just started throwing rocks at the house, and she broke a couple windows. Indian police weren't really called, I don't believe so, but she was just throwing heavy stone, like at least 5 pounds, at the house. And you know, she would have killed you know, my dad's aunt if it had gotten worse. And you know, we brought her back from India, and it was obviously not going down. If anything, it was growing every day. She was constantly screaming. I don't know how her voice didn't go so, I don't know how she was able to scream that much. But just, it was constant. And my dad finally realized, like, we have to take matters into our own hands. And she always had a big pile of medicine in the house that she would never touch because obviously it was everyone else that was trying to get back at her for being crazy. So she would, so what my dad finally did was he cut off all access to their joint bank account on her side, so she couldn't withdraw any money. He took away her car key so she couldn't leave the house. And so basically she was trapped in our house with no money at all. And he finally told her, if you don't take your meds that you obviously need to, everyone is telling you that you need to, you're not going to leave the house ever unless you walk. And so she finally complied. And she's been taking her meds ever since, and it's been more or less normal. But a really bad part of that is I have to keep reminding myself, like, this person that I love right now, that's not my mother. That is just someone on drugs that is happy all the time. The worst part is just knowing that if my mother is not on drugs at any given time, she will lose it and make all our lives hell. And yeah, that's pretty much the story of my mother with paranoid schizophrenia. Do you guys have any questions? I mean, I'll answer anything. Don't worry about, like, is that too personal, or I'll answer it if you have a question about it. Oh, yeah.
Thanks. Realizing, I understand your emotions that you went through and how that affects you, but you realize that, you know, she's mentally ill. Mm-hmm. And although the bad things she put you through, she didn't do it because she hated you or hated your dad or your brother. She had a mental illness that she would not take care of. And that's not uncommon for people with schizophrenia.
You know, I do understand that. That's why at the time, I felt like I was never going to forgive her. Mm-hmm. You know, not in 100 years. No, I wouldn't come to her funeral if she died. But now I can look back on it and be like, you know, that wasn't her talking. It was the disease that she had. Mm-hmm. And so I can look back on that, and, you know, it's fine now. I look back on it with, yeah.
So has she had this always, or did this, like, come up?
We think it's been always because even her family, like, she was she showed symptoms of it when she was a child. And, yeah, I remember it all through my life. Just last year when it got really out of hand. Anything else? Yeah.
Did you really have to supervise her to get her taking her meds again? Like
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, you
Yeah,
said.
we put her on lockdown. Yeah, she deserved it too. I mean, I don't feel bad about doing it. It was what had to be done.
Why didn't she stay in a mental hospital? Like, why did she keep coming home if she was such a danger to you and your family?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. She stayed for one night, and they just released her the next day on account of, she would be, I think it was because if she had taken her meds, she's normal, right? So I think they just said, get her to take her meds and send her home. I think that's the reason. I'm pretty sure it is anyway.
Well, again, when you're schizophrenic, it's everybody else's fault.
Yeah, no, you don't have to take the meds. Everyone else does.
Yeah.
So,
Do you realize that schizophrenia does run in families?
yeah, it does. I hope I don't have to.
How old are you?
17.
Right about now, you should start, if you're going to have it, you would start exhibiting some of the symptoms.
Am I a bad person? Do the people know? Okay.
Yes, you.
Terrible. No, I'm joking. You're good.
Yeah, is that it? Well, thank you guys for listening. Being my first speech, I'm sorry it was so choppy.